We were best friends for 15 years and strangers for 6. Then one storm trapped us together, and all the words we never said came out. The first snow of the season was never quiet in Minneapolis. It slammed against windows, whirled down streets, and clung to the bare trees like it was trying to hold the world in place. I hadn't expected to be home for it, hadn't expected to see him again, hadn't expected my chest to feel like it might shatter the moment I stepped onto Main Street. I thought I was ready. I thought I had moved on from Jonah. High school best friend, secret crush, the boy who had stolen my heart without ever knowing it. I had left town years ago with a camera slung over my shoulder and a restless heart, chasing moments and cities and strangers. And yet here I was, headlights reflecting on snowdrifts, boots crunching against streets I knew too well, heart thudding in ways it hadn't in years. I didn't see him at first. The storm was sudden, fierce, and I wrapped my scarf tighter, wishing I could disappear. The smell of wet asphalt and pine needles made my stomach twist. Memories of high school winters and snowball fights and shared laughter flooding me like an avalanche. And then I saw him. Jonah was leaning against the firehouse door, paramedic jacket zipped up, boots dusted with snow. He looked older, broader somehow, the lines around his eyes sharper, the corners of his mouth set in that familiar curve that used to make my heart race. My throat went dry. My camera hung uselessly at my side. I wanted to run, to hide, to pretend I didn't feel a thing, but my feet didn't move. He looked up, and that slow, calculating way he scanned the street before his gaze landed on me, like he had been waiting for this moment, like he had imagined it 1,000 times, made me ache. I wanted to smile, to speak, to throw myself into the warmth of familiarity, but all that came out was a shaky exhale, mist blending with the swirling snow. The snowstorm intensified. Cars struggled to crawl along the roads, streetlights flickered in the haze, and I realized with a sharp sting that the storm would trap us both in this town, in this moment, whether we liked it or not. My heart hammered as if it already knew the confrontation was coming, the confession I had never dared to voice, the feelings that had been buried under years of distance and silence. He didn't approach me at first. He just watched, as though measuring my pulse through the storm, reading the story my eyes were trying to hide, and I realized for the first time in years that the boy I'd loved was no longer a boy. He was a man, and yet he had always been him, the one I couldn't forget, the one I shouldn't still want. Snow piled around us like it was protecting us from the rest of the world. And in that frozen street, with the storm screaming and hearts threatening to betray us, I knew the night was far from over. Something was about to ignite, something dangerous, something necessary, something I could no longer avoid. Do you think childhood best friends can fall in love years later? Or is some love meant to stay secret forever? I wanted to turn and run, disappear into the white haze of snow, tell myself this was just a coincidence, that Jonah was busy and I had no right to feel the way I did. But my boots were rooted in the ice-crusted street, my chest tight with the kind of anticipation that made breathing impossible. He stepped forward then, slow and deliberate, and every nerve in my body screamed both relief and warning. "Clara," he said, voice low but cutting through the roar of the wind like it was meant only for me. My name on his lips carried all the weight of the years we had wasted, all the words we had left unspoken, all the silences that had stretched between us like frozen rivers. I could only nod, unable to find my voice, my throat dry as snowflakes melted on my lips. He took off his gloves and brushed a strand of hair from my face. It should have been innocent, fleeting, nothing more than a gesture between old friends. But my skin remembered the way his hands had lingered in high school, the way my heart had always betrayed me in his presence. Every memory collided with the present, and suddenly I was 15 again, longing and reckless and foolish, trapped in a body that had learned caution too late. The wind whipped against us, snowflakes stinging our cheeks, yet I felt like we were alone. The rest of the town had disappeared, cars slipping through drifts, streetlights flickering, leaving just Jonah and me in a frozen world we had created ourselves. He looked at me as though he wanted to say something that might undo years of distance, and I realized I was holding my breath, waiting for him to speak. "I didn't think you'd come back for the snow," he finally said, a wry edge to his tone that couldn't mask the tension underneath. He glanced down the street, then back at me, and I saw the vulnerability I'd tried to bury, the same vulnerability that mirrored my own. I hated that I recognized it instantly, hated that my chest ached at the sight of him so exposed, so real. I wasn't planning to, I admitted, voice shaking, and even I could hear the truth behind the words. But the storm, it makes you think, makes you come home, make you wonder about everything you left behind. I looked at him, and suddenly the years dissolved. The distance, the travel, the photographs, the restless life, it all faded, leaving only the boy I had loved and the man he had become, standing inches away from me in the snow. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of white in his hair, the sharp blue of his eyes, the way his coat hung on him. My chest tightened. I wanted to tell him everything, spill all the words I'd kept for decades, but I didn't. Instead, I just let the snow fall, let the storm roar, and let the silence between us speak louder than I ever could. Because tonight, trapped in the first snow of winter, nothing would be simple. The past had caught up with us, and the future, whatever that might be, was dangling just beyond the next heartbeat. If someone you loved in the past suddenly returned, would you confess your feelings or let the moment pass? The snow kept falling, thick and relentless, and suddenly the street felt like a world apart from the one I had left behind years ago. Every flake that landed on Jonah's shoulders, every swirl caught in his eyelashes, made me forget the years, the distance, the walls I had built around my heart. I wanted to speak, to bridge the gap of silence that had stretched across time, but my voice wouldn't come. My lips moved, forming words that never left, confessions I had buried too deep to surface now. Jonah shifted his weight, brushing snow from his coat, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, I remembered the boy he had been, the one who held my books when they slipped from my hands, the one who waited for me to finish a story, the one who always understood before I spoke. And now he was a man, scarred by time and work, by emergencies and lives in his hands, and yet he had always carried that same part of himself, the part that belonged to me. I never thought I'd see you here, so he said softly, eyes flicking to mine and back to the snow-dusted street. His voice was calm, but I could hear the undercurrent of something else. Relief, fear, longing. I swallowed hard and forced myself to meet his gaze. I wasn't planning on coming back, I admitted. But storms make people do things they don't expect. Make them remember what they left behind. He nodded slowly, and the wind blew a strand of hair across my face. I reached up almost instinctively to brush it away, and our fingers brushed. A spark of something dangerous and undeniable ran up my arm. My chest constricted, my heart threatening to break from the weight of everything I had held in for so long. He didn't pull away, and I didn't either. We walked then, almost without thought, the snow crunching under our boots, silence stretching between us, but it wasn't empty. Every glance, every half-smile, every step carried meaning we couldn't yet name. My camera, slung lazily over my shoulder, felt heavier than usual, a reminder of the life I'd built away from here, the life I might have to choose between, if tonight changed everything. Jonah stopped and turned toward me, his blue eyes sharp despite the snowflakes clinging to his lashes. Clara, his voice caught, softer this time, almost hesitant. Did you ever think about me after I left? I blinked. I had rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times in my mind, but the words tangled in my throat. Every day, I whispered finally, my breath fogging in the cold air, even when I tried not to. His lips curved, barely, a shadow of a smile, and he stepped closer. Me too, he said, almost as if speaking it aloud made it real for the first time. Every day, Clara, even when I tried not to. The wind picked up, the snow spiraled around us, and suddenly everything else, the town, the storm, the years apart, faded. It was just us, standing in the middle of a snowy street, hearts laid bare, the past colliding with the present in a way that neither of us could deny. Have you ever loved someone silently for years, only to realize they felt the same? The wind howled through the streets, rattling shutters and shaking the few remaining signs of life in the town, but inside me, it was quiet. Jonah and I walked together, boots crunching in the snow, shoulders brushing accidentally, hearts pounding in a rhythm only we could hear. Every step made the years apart feel heavier. Every glance made my chest ache with the weight of everything I'd never said. Do you remember the night of the winter dance? He asked suddenly, voice low, almost swallowed by the storm. I blinked, surprised. That night felt like a lifetime ago, a memory I had tucked away neatly among other youthful mistakes and secret wishes. Of course, I said softly, a small smile tugging at my lips despite the chill. You danced with everyone except me, didn't you? He laughed, a sound I thought I had forgotten, sharp and warm and full of memory. I was terrified, he admitted. Terrified of admitting what I felt, and you weren't giving me a chance to. My heart clenched. I hadn't realized how much I'd carried that night with me, how many times I'd replayed it silently, imagining him leaning closer, finally noticing what had always been there. We reached the corner where the small cafe used to be, closed now for the season, lights off, a single wreath swaying in the wind. The storm was thickening, visibility dropping to almost nothing. And then it hit me. We were trapped. There was no going forward tonight, no escape into the world I had built elsewhere. We were here, together, and nothing about that was simple anymore. I don't want to go back to pretending, I whispered, barely audible over the roar of the wind. Jonah's hand brushed against mine as he stopped, a subtle, deliberate touch that made my stomach twist. He didn't speak, didn't pull away, didn't need to. I could feel him waiting for me to decide if this was the moment we could finally admit everything. I don't either, he said after a long pause, his breath mingling with the cold air, fog curling between us like smoke. Clara, I've never stopped thinking about you. Never. And He stopped, eyes searching mine, hesitant, vulnerable. I wanted to close the distance, to tell him the same, but the words felt like fire on my tongue, dangerous and impossible to contain. I stepped closer. The snow spun around us, blanketing the street, turning the world into something quiet and private. Jonah, I've never stopped loving you, I said finally, voice trembling. Even when I left, even when I tried not to. His eyes widened just slightly, and then he closed the distance, brushing a strand of snow-flecked hair from my face, his hands lingering for just a moment too long. Clara, he breathed, his lips barely above mine. You have no idea how long I've waited to hear you say that. The storm raged on, indifferent, but for the first time I didn't care. The past, the distance, the years of silence, they didn't matter anymore. Right now it was just us, snow swirling, hearts exposed, finally telling each other the truth we had carried for far too long. Would you confess your love if a storm trapped you with someone you had always loved? The snow swirled around us, relentless, as if the world was trying to hold us in this frozen bubble forever. Jonah's hand still brushed mine, tentative at first, but then firmer, warmer, like he was anchoring himself to me, as if letting go now would undo everything we had been holding back for years. My chest felt tight, my breath shallow, but I couldn't move away. Not now, not ever. Clara, he whispered, voice trembling slightly. I don't care about the storm. I don't care if the roads are blocked. I don't care about anything but you. Right here. The honesty in his tone made my heart hammer. Every word he had left unspoken all these years was being said in a single, fragile moment. And I realized with a sting I hadn't expected that I had spent half my life running from him, from what I had always wanted. I laughed softly, a sound lost in the wind, but it was shaky, nervous. You have no idea how much I've imagined this, I admitted. Every snowstorm, every holiday, every time I came back home for a weekend, I imagined us like this, finally honest, but I was always too scared. My words hung in the air, fragile as frost on the trees. He stepped closer, the snow pressing around us like a protective veil. I was scared too, he confessed, blue eyes glimmering with snowflakes and unshed tears. Scared of losing you, scared of ruining what we had, even if we never said it aloud. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing along my skin, sending a jolt through me that I hadn't felt in years. But tonight I can't stay silent anymore. The wind howled around us, but the world had shrunk to just the two of us. My fingers found his, intertwining naturally, as if they had never needed to be anywhere else. Jonah, I whispered, I've waited for this too, longer than I even realized. My voice trembled, carrying everything I had kept locked inside, the love, the longing, the fear. He drew me closer, forehead resting against mine, breaths mingling in the icy air. Then we have to promise we won't let it go again, he said, a whisper that felt louder than any shout. We have to be brave, even if the storm doesn't end. I nodded, the snow sticking to my lashes, the world around us a blur of white and wind. I won't let us go, I said, not now, not ever. And then, without another word, he kissed me, soft, tentative at first, but then steady, certain, the kind of kiss that carried years of unspoken words, regrets, and love too deep for silence. The snow swirled faster, but I didn't notice. The storm could rage on. The world could crumble outside this frozen street. Right here, right now, we had found each other, and nothing else mattered. Time didn't exist anymore. Only the warmth between us, only the closeness that felt like home, only the understanding that whatever had been lost in years past had been found tonight. And in that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Would you risk everything for someone you've secretly loved for years, even if the world outside is against you? The storm worsened, snow piling high against the curbs, wind rattling windows of the few houses still lit along the street. Jonah and I had no choice but to find shelter. A small cafe, closed for the season, offered refuge. Its windows frosted over, door creaking under the weight of snow, but inside it was warm, faint scent of stale coffee and wood lingering, a small hearth flickering against the cold. He pushed the door open and gestured for me to step inside. We can't go anywhere, he said, voice low, almost hesitant. The roads are shut and I don't want you risking your car. We'll wait it out here. My chest fluttered, a mix of relief and something deeper, almost dangerous. I'd spent years avoiding this, avoiding him, avoiding what my heart had wanted since high school, and now the universe, or the storm, had left us with no escape. I set my camera down and exhaled, watching the snow pound against the windows. Jonah stood near the hearth, coat still dusted with snow, hair wet, boots clumsy on the floor. He looked like he belonged here with me, like he had always belonged, and the ache in my chest sharpened. It feels surreal, I admitted, voice trembling. Like I've been waiting for this my entire life, and yet it's happening too fast to even process. He stepped closer, warmth radiating from his body, and I felt it seep into my frozen limbs. Clara, he whispered, hand brushing against mine. We've lost so many years. I can't change that, but I can't ignore this either. Not now, not tonight. His gaze searched mine, intense, demanding honesty. I nodded, unable to speak. My heart was a chaotic drum inside my chest, threatening to burst. I finally let myself move, taking his hand fully in mine, the simple contact more electric than anything I had felt before. Jonah, I whispered, I've loved you all this time, even when I left, even when I thought moving away would make it easier to forget. I never forgot. He closed the distance, fingers entwined with mine, eyes shimmering with a mix of relief, longing, and something fragile that only made my chest ache more. And I've never stopped loving you, he said, voice breaking. Every call, every night shift, every time I came home and didn't see you, I felt it. Every day. I was scared too, Clara. Scared of ruining everything. Scared of losing the friendship. Scared of you saying no. The fire flickered, shadows dancing across his face, and for a moment all the walls I had built around my heart crumbled. I wanted to collapse against him, tell him everything, let the years of longing and fear pour out in a single breath. Then don't let me go again, I whispered, stepping closer, letting the warmth of his body fill the spaces I had tried to protect. He leaned in, forehead touching mine, breath mingling with mine in the warm glow of the cabin. I won't, he said softly. Not now, not ever. The snowstorm raged outside, but inside, time had stopped. The years of distance, silence, and fear melted away, leaving only us trapped in a small space, finally daring to love openly. If a storm forced you to confront someone you've always loved, would you finally confess your feelings or keep hiding? The fire crackled, throwing shadows across the walls of the little cafe, and I finally let myself breathe. The storm outside felt distant, almost insignificant, compared to the warmth building between us. Jonah and I sat on the worn wooden bench, hands still intertwined, hearts racing in sync with the flickering flames. Every glance, every subtle movement, spoke more than words ever could. I can't believe it took a storm to bring us together again, I said softly, watching him. His profile was sharp in the firelight, blue eyes glimmering like ice, and I realized I could stare at him forever and still never get enough. All those years, we could have had this sooner. He gave a small, rueful smile. I thought the same thing, he admitted. But maybe we needed this. Needed to see what we really meant to each other without the distractions, without running away. His voice was low, hesitant, like he was testing the words before releasing them. I nodded, heart twisting. I had spent so long running, and now that I was here, nothing else seemed to matter. The snowstorm pressed against the windows like it was holding the world at bay, isolating us, forcing us to exist only in this room, in this moment. My hand found his face, brushing away a fleck of snow that had somehow clung to his cheek. His eyes softened, lips parting slightly as if inviting something I'd been too scared to give. Clara, he whispered, and the way he said my name made my entire body hum. I leaned closer, the warmth of the fire mixing with the heat between us, and whispered, Jonah, I've waited for this. For you. He didn't move away. Instead, he leaned in slowly, forehead resting against mine, breaths mingling, hearts racing together. The world outside ceased to exist. The snow, the storm, the years apart, they didn't matter. It was just him and me finally daring to be close. And then softly, carefully, he kissed me. Just a brush at first. Tentative, testing the boundaries we had never crossed before. But I responded instinctively, tilting my head, letting the years of longing and silence pour into that single moment. The warmth of his body, the taste of snow and fire in him, made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. We pulled back slightly, breaths heavy, foreheads touching. Clara, he murmured, voice rough with emotion. I've wanted this for so long. Every day I came home, hoping, praying that someday we'd be here. I swallowed hard, letting the emotion flood through me. Me too, I whispered. Every single day, Jonah. I never stopped. The fire crackled, snow continued to batter the windows, but inside, nothing could touch us. Every hesitation, every fear, every lost year melted away in the heat between us. We were here now, we were together. And for the first time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, love could survive storms, time, and distance. Have you ever waited years for someone, only to realize that one moment can make up for everything you lost? The storm outside raged harder, snow whipping against the windows, wind rattling the old cafe shutters, but inside, Jonah and I existed in a world that felt entirely our own. The fire cast a golden glow, shadows dancing across the walls, and for the first time in years, I felt safe enough to let my heart speak without fear. Jonah poured 2 mugs of steaming coffee, hands steady despite the tension that had clung to him all evening. He handed one to me, fingers brushing, and I felt a jolt I didn't bother hiding. "It's cold out there," he said softly. "I don't know how anyone is still moving in this storm, but somehow, we ended up here." His eyes held mine, searching, intense. "I know," I said, taking the warmth in my hands and letting it seep into my frozen fingers. "It feels unreal, almost. Like life finally paused so we could be honest, so we could finally see each other for what we've always meant." My voice trembled slightly, and he reached across the table, covering my hand with his. The heat from his skin was grounding, making me aware of how much I'd missed him. "Clara," he whispered, leaning closer. "I don't want this to end. I can't go back to pretending. I can't go back to being the guy who watches you leave, who wonders what could have been." His words cut deep, and I realized just how much of my own life I'd tried to live without him, how many empty nights I had filled with images and cities that meant nothing. "You won't have to," I said softly, voice breaking with relief and longing. "I don't want to go anywhere without you. I don't want to run anymore. I want us." The words tasted like freedom, like the first breath after years underwater. He smiled, almost shyly, as if he couldn't believe I'd said it. "And what about the life you've built?" he asked cautiously, still holding my hand. "The travels, the work, the everything?" I looked down, feeling the weight of my choices, the years I had spent chasing everything except the one person I had always needed. "I'll figure it out," I said finally, meeting his gaze. "Because this, us, is worth it, always." The snow outside pressed against the windows like a shield, isolating us from the world. I leaned back slightly, resting my head against his shoulder, letting the warmth of his presence fill the emptiness I'd carried for so long. Jonah wrapped an arm around me, pulling me closer, and I realized that for the first time, I didn't feel fear, only certainty. "I don't care if the storm never ends," he murmured, lips brushing my hair. "As long as we have each other, I'm home." I smiled against his chest, letting the tears come freely now, warm and unashamed. "Me too," I whispered. "Finally, I'm home too." The fire flickered, the storm raged, and outside the world was white and wild. But inside, in that small cafe, 2 hearts that had waited years for each other beat in sync, fearless, finally honest, finally together. Would you give up everything you've built if it meant finally being with the one you've always loved? The storm began to ease, snowflakes drifting lazily through the fading wind, coating the streets in a soft, glimmering white. Outside, the world looked untouched, quiet, as if it had waited for this night just as much as we had. Inside the small cafe, Jonah and I remained huddled close, hands intertwined, letting the warmth of the fire and each other fill the spaces that years of absence had carved between us. He rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed, and I traced a line along his jaw with my thumb, memorizing the contours I had once known as intimately as my own. "It's strange," he said finally, voice low, "to feel like no time has passed, and yet everything has changed." I nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Every laugh we shared, every glance we stole across classrooms and playgrounds, every secret we had whispered in the dark, it all came rushing back, colliding with the adults we had become. "I never wanted to leave," I admitted softly, voice trembling. "But I had to see the world, to find myself. And yet, even as I went, I carried you with me. Every photo, every city, every flight, every sunset, it all reminded me of what I left behind, of you." His eyes glimmered in the firelight, and for a moment I thought he might say something that would break me in half with longing. Instead, he smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "And I've carried you too," he said quietly. "Every call, every shift, every quiet night when I thought no one was paying attention. I thought of you, wondered if you were okay, if you were happy. And I knew I couldn't let this go, not now, not ever." The cafe was empty, silent except for the crackling fire and our steady breaths. I leaned into him, feeling the weight of the years finally lift, the tension of unspoken words dissolving into warmth and trust. "We've lost time," I whispered, "but we have this now, and that has to be enough. That has to be our start." Jonah tilted my chin up gently, looking into my eyes as though he could see every moment I'd ever lived, every fear I'd ever carried. "It's more than enough," he said firmly. "We'll make it enough. We have to. I won't let us go again." His lips found mine in a kiss that was slow, tender, full of all the years we had missed and all the promises we would keep. I clung to him, feeling that the world outside, storm, snow, time, distance, had no power here. We pulled back slightly, foreheads touching, hearts beating in unison. "What now?" I whispered, voice soft, barely audible. "Now we live," he said simply, brushing snowflakes from my shoulders. "Now we don't run. Now we build something together, one day at a time, no matter what the storm brings." And in that moment, I believed him. I believed in the quiet power of love that had survived years, miles, and silence. I believed in the home we had found in each other. Outside, the storm was ending. Inside, our hearts were beginning. Would you finally take a chance on someone if you knew it could change your life forever? Morning arrived slowly, soft pale light filtering through the frosted windows. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside glimmering under a blanket of untouched snow. I pressed my forehead to the window, watching footprints vanish under the gentle snowfall, and realized how quiet the world felt after the chaos of the night. Quiet and still, like it had been holding its breath, waiting for us to finally take our first real step together. Jonah joined me at the window, warm and solid at my side. His hand found mine instantly, fingers lacing naturally, the comfort of familiarity grounding me. We didn't need words yet. The silence itself spoke volumes, years of longing, unspoken confessions, and stolen glances condensed into a single morning, in a single space where we finally belonged. You ready to face the world? He asked quietly, lips brushing my hair. The question sounded simple, but I knew it carried everything. The life I had lived, the work I had built, the roads I had traveled alone, and now it carried him, the love I had always carried in my heart. I smiled, turning to meet his eyes. I am, because I have you. He squeezed my hand, a small, tender gesture that made my heart ache and soar at the same time. Then let's start, he said softly. One day at a time, together. No more running, no more pretending. I nodded, feeling the weight of fear lift from my chest, replaced with hope, with certainty. We had waited long enough. The past was a shadow now, the future a blank canvas, and we held the brush together. I glanced down at my camera, still resting against the table. It had been my constant companion, my shield, my reason to wander. But now I realized that no photograph, no city, no fleeting moment had ever compared to this, being here, present, with him. I didn't need to chase the world anymore. I only needed to hold on to the one person who had been in my heart all along. Jonah drew me close again, forehead resting against mine, and whispered, home. And in that single word, I understood everything. Home wasn't a city, or a job, or a photograph. Home was him. It always had been. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the snow-covered streets, and for the first time in years, everything felt right. We stepped outside together, boots crunching through the pristine snow, hearts light, hands intertwined, facing the world without hesitation, without fear. The storm had tested us, pushed us to the edge, but it had also given us clarity, given us each other. And as we walked toward the town, toward the life we would build together, I realized that love, the kind that waits, that survives distance, time, and silence, was worth every second of longing, every ounce of fear. This was our beginning, and nothing, neither storm nor years lost, could ever take it away. Do you believe some loves are meant to wait for the perfect moment? And if so, would you recognize it when it finally came?